Almost everything society teaches us about money sounds reasonable. Work hard, save carefully, stay patient, and eventually, success will come. That story feels comforting. It feels fair. But if that formula were truly enough, millions of people who work incredibly hard every single day would already be wealthy. Yet the reality of the world tells a very different story. Across cities and towns everywhere, there are people who wake up before sunrise, work long hours, carry enormous responsibilities, and still struggle financially year after year. Meanwhile, there are others who seem to move through the world differently. They build businesses, they spot opportunities early, they create value in unexpected ways, and somehow, money appears to flow toward them more easily. This difference raises an uncomfortable but fascinating question. But what if wealth is not simply the reward for effort? What if money follows certain laws that most people were never taught? More than a century ago, a man named Wallace D. Wattles became obsessed with that exact question. At the beginning of the 20th century, America was transforming rapidly. Railroads expanded across the country. Entire industries were appearing almost overnight, and fortunes were being built faster than ever before. Wattles began studying the lives of people who repeatedly created wealth. Not just those who became rich once, but those who managed to rebuild wealth again and again, even after failure. What he noticed was surprising. These individuals did not simply work harder than everyone else. They thought differently. They approached opportunity differently. And perhaps most importantly, that they seemed to operate according to principles that others didn't fully understand. This observation eventually led Wattles to write a small but remarkable book called The Science of Being Rich. The title itself makes a bold claim. Becoming rich, according to Wattles, is not an accident. It is not luck. It is not reserved for a select few. It is a science, meaning that just like physics or mathematics, wealth operates according to certain principles. If those principles are followed consistently, the results eventually appear. Now, I'll be honest with you. The first time I encountered this idea, I was skeptical. Because the world we see around us rarely looks predictable. Some people are born into opportunity. Others start with enormous disadvantages. Life can be chaotic and uncertain. So the idea that becoming rich could follow a science can sound overly simple at first. But the more I reflected on Wattles' philosophy, the more I realized something important. This book is not really about money alone. It is about the relationship between thought, creativity, and opportunity. Consider for a moment how almost every major innovation in history began. Before the airplane existed, someone imagined it. Before the internet connected the world, someone imagined it. Before companies like Apple or Amazon existed, someone imagined entirely new ways to solve problems. Every physical creation begins with a mental picture, and according to Wattles, wealth works in a very similar way. Money does not simply reward effort. It responds to clarity. It responds to creativity. And it responds to people who act consistently in alignment with a clear vision of the future. That doesn't mean the path becomes easy. It simply means the direction becomes clearer. Personally, I don't believe wealth can ever be reduced to a single formula. Life is far too complex for that. But I do believe that the way we think about value, opportunity, and creation profoundly shapes the decisions we make every day. And over time, those decisions quietly shape the direction of our lives. In this audiobook, we're going to explore the core ideas behind the science of being rich, not as blind belief, but as powerful principles worth examining carefully. Because even if you treat these ideas simply as mental frameworks rather than absolute laws, they reveal something fascinating about how wealth tends to emerge in the real world. And money rarely follows effort alone. More often, it follows clarity, creativity, and consistent action. And perhaps the most intriguing idea of all is this: wealth may not simply be something you chase. It may be something that gradually moves toward the kind of person you become. And understanding that possibility is where our journey begins. Chapter 1. The Invisible Law Behind All Wealth. Walk through any busy city early in the morning and you will see something remarkable. Lights turning on in office buildings, restaurants preparing for the day, construction crews already at work, delivery trucks moving through quiet streets. The world is full of effort. Millions of people begin their day long before sunrise. They work hard, they stay disciplined, and they carry responsibilities that demand enormous energy. And yet, effort alone does not seem to explain who becomes wealthy. If effort were the deciding factor, the hardest working people in society would also be the richest. But reality rarely works that way. Across every country, there are individuals who work relentlessly for decades and still struggle to build financial security. At the same time, there are others whose relationship with money seems very different. Opportunities appear around them, ideas turn into businesses. Small projects grow into systems that continue producing value for years. The difference between these two paths raises a fascinating question. If wealth is not simply the reward for working harder, what actually creates it? More than a century ago, a man named Wallace D. Wattles became deeply interested in that question. He spent years observing people who repeatedly created wealth, not just those who became rich once through luck or timing, but those who managed to rebuild wealth again and again, even after failure. The patterns he observed led him to write a small book that would quietly influence generations of entrepreneurs and thinkers. That book was The Science of Being Rich. The title itself carries a bold claim. It suggests that becoming rich is not random. It suggests that wealth follows certain principles. In other words, it suggests that wealth behaves like a science. Now, that idea can sound surprising at first, because life often appears chaotic. Some people inherit advantages, others face enormous obstacles. Entire industries rise and fall. But beneath the surface of that complexity, history reveals a repeating pattern. Again and again, wealth appears to follow creation. Consider the early days of the automobile industry. At the beginning of the 20th century, automobiles were rare machines. They were expensive, difficult to manufacture, and available only to a small group of wealthy buyers. Most people assumed cars would always remain luxury items. And then a man named Henry Ford looked at the same world and imagined something different. Ford believed automobiles could become tools for ordinary families, not luxury machines. Everyday machines. This idea required a completely different approach to manufacturing. Instead of building cars slowly by hand, Ford developed the moving assembly line, an innovation that allowed cars to be produced faster and more efficiently than ever before. The result was extraordinary. The price of automobiles dropped dramatically. Cars that once seemed unattainable suddenly became accessible to millions of people, and Ford became one of the wealthiest industrialists of his time. Now notice something important in this story. Thousands of factory workers were working extremely hard during that era. But hard work alone did not create the fortune, and the fortune followed a different force. Vision, creation, the ability to imagine something that did not yet exist, and then build systems capable of bringing that vision into reality. This is the distinction that Wallace Wattles tried to explain. Two different mindsets shape how people approach wealth. The first mindset is competition. Competition focuses on fighting over existing opportunities. It assumes resources are limited. If someone else wins, someone else must lose. This mindset leads people to chase the same opportunities everyone else is chasing. But there is another approach. Creation. Creation expands opportunity rather than fighting over it. Instead of asking, how can I take a larger share of what already exists? Creation asks a different question. What new value can be brought into the world? History repeatedly shows that enormous wealth tends to follow the second question. Look again at the innovators who reshaped entire industries. When Steve Jobs helped introduce the personal computer, he was not competing for a slightly larger share of an existing market. He was helping create an entirely new one. Before personal computers existed, very few people believed they would become tools used in everyday life. Yet, the moment that idea became reality, a completely new economic landscape appeared, and with it came extraordinary wealth. These patterns reveal something powerful. Wealth does not simply reward effort. It rewards creation. That insight leads directly to the deeper principle at the center of Wattles' philosophy. Every act of creation begins with thought. Before a building exists, someone imagines it. Before a company exists, someone envisions it. Before a new industry appears, someone sees a possibility others cannot yet see. Thought is always the beginning. Not magic, not luck, but a simple pattern repeated across history. First comes the idea, then comes the system that brings the idea into the world, and finally, wealth follows the value that creation produces. Understanding this pattern changes how we look at financial success. It shifts attention away from exhaustion and toward imagination, away from competition and toward creativity. And once someone begins thinking in that direction, an entirely different path begins to open. The invisible law behind wealth is not hidden in financial markets. It begins much earlier than that. It begins in the mind. And that is where our journey truly begins. Chapter 2. Thought is the beginning of all wealth. Every great creation in human history begins the same way. Not in a factory, not in a financial market, not in a boardroom. It begins quietly inside the human mind. Long before something exists in the physical world, it first appears as a thought, a mental image, a possibility, a vision of something that does not yet exist. Look at almost any major breakthrough in history, and you will see this pattern. Before airplanes filled the skies, someone imagined human flight. Before the internet connected billions of people, someone imagined a world where information could travel instantly across continents. Before electric light illuminated entire cities, someone imagined a world no longer limited by darkness. Thought always comes first. Reality follows later. This idea sits at the very center of the philosophy described by Wallace D. Wattles. According to Wattles, wealth begins the same way, not with money, not with resources, but with thought. He described the universe as containing what he called a thinking substance, a creative force that responds to the images held clearly in the human mind. Now, whether you interpret this idea as spiritual philosophy, psychological insight, or metaphor for human creativity is up to you. But there is something undeniably powerful hidden inside this concept. Human beings act according to the pictures they hold in their minds. When someone constantly imagines limitation, their decisions tend to reflect that expectation. Opportunities appear risky. Ideas feel unrealistic. Action becomes cautious and defensive. But when someone holds a clear mental picture of possibility, something different begins to happen. Their attention shifts. Instead of focusing on obstacles, they begin noticing opportunities. Instead of reacting to circumstances, they begin shaping them. Thought quietly directs action, and action, repeated over time, shapes outcomes. History provides many examples of this pattern. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. Before electric lighting existed, most cities relied on candles and gas lamps. The idea of lighting entire streets and homes with electricity seemed almost impossible to many people. Edison spent years experimenting with different materials, conducting thousands of tests while searching for a filament that would allow electric light to work reliably. At one point, a journalist asked him how it felt to fail so many times, and Edison reportedly answered with a remarkable perspective. He said he had not failed. He had simply discovered thousands of ways that did not work. Behind that response was something powerful, a clear picture in his mind. He believed electric light was possible long before the technology existed to support it, and that belief guided years of persistent experimentation. Eventually, the light bulb worked. Soon after, entire cities began illuminating their streets with electricity. Once again, an invisible idea inside the human mind transformed the physical world, and once again, enormous economic value followed creation. This is exactly the process Wattles was trying to describe. Creation begins in thought, not vague wishing, not casual hope, but a definite mental picture, a clear internal vision of something that does not yet exist. The power of this process becomes easier to understand when we observe how successful entrepreneurs operate. Many of them share a similar habit. They see possibilities before others do. They imagine products before they exist. They visualize systems long before the world recognizes their potential. Take the example of Jeff Bezos. In the mid-1990s, the internet was still a new and uncertain technology. Most people saw it as a curiosity. Bezos saw something else. He imagined a global store that could offer millions of products without the limitations of physical shelves. This idea eventually became Amazon. At the beginning, it was simply an online bookstore run from a small office, but the vision behind it was much larger. Over time, that vision expanded into one of the largest companies in the world, and once again, wealth followed the act of creation. Notice something important in these stories. None of these individuals began with certainty. They began with imagination, they began with thought, and they held on to that thought long enough to act on it. This is the deeper lesson behind Wattles' philosophy. Wealth begins when thought becomes definite, when an idea becomes clear enough to guide consistent action. Without clarity, action becomes scattered. People chase opportunities randomly. They react to circumstances instead of shaping them, but when a clear vision exists, decisions begin aligning with that direction. Energy becomes focused. Small actions begin building toward a larger outcome, and over time, those actions accumulate. That is how creation happens. First the thought, then the action, then the system. Finally, the wealth that follows value created in the world. This is why Wattles emphasized something he called definite thinking. Not daydreaming, not vague ambition, but a precise mental picture of the life you intend to build. Because the mind functions like a compass. When the destination is unclear, every direction feels uncertain. But when the destination becomes clear, movement becomes easier. Opportunities that once seemed invisible suddenly become obvious. Ideas connect in new ways, and progress accelerates. This does not mean every idea succeeds immediately. Every creator faces setbacks. Every entrepreneur experiences doubt. But the difference lies in direction. When thought remains steady, action eventually catches up. And when action persists long enough, reality begins to reshape itself around the original vision. This is why wealth rarely begins with money. It begins with imagination. A simple thought, held clearly, nurtured consistently, and acted upon with persistence. In the next chapter, we will explore another idea that Wattles believed separates ordinary financial struggle from extraordinary wealth. An idea that challenges one of the deepest assumptions about success. The belief that competition is the path to prosperity. Because according to Wattles, the greatest fortunes are rarely built by competing harder. They are built by creating something entirely new. Chapter 3. Creation versus competition. The wealth principle. Few understand, Look closely at how society teaches success, and a pattern begins to appear. From a young age, life is presented as a series of competitions. Students compete for grades, workers compete for promotions, companies compete for market share. The message is clear: to succeed, you must outperform someone else. This mindset feels natural because competition exists everywhere in daily life. But according to Wallace D. Wattles, competition is not the true engine of wealth. Creation is. That distinction changes everything. Competition fights over what already exists. Creation expands what is possible. Competition divides a fixed pie. Creation makes the pie larger. Understanding this difference reveals something fascinating about the history of wealth. The largest fortunes in modern history rarely came from winning existing games. They came from creating new ones. Consider the story of Steve Jobs. During the 1970s, computers were massive machines used primarily by governments and universities. Very few people believed computers would ever become tools for ordinary individuals. The idea simply did not exist in mainstream thinking. But Jobs saw something others did not. He imagined a world where technology could become personal. A computer not just for engineers or corporations, a computer for creativity, a computer for everyday life. When the first Apple computers appeared, they did not merely compete with existing machines. They introduced an entirely new way of interacting with technology. Soon after, the personal computer industry exploded, and with it came enormous economic value. And this pattern appears again and again throughout history. New industries create wealth. New ideas create opportunity. New solutions generate value where none previously existed. The principle behind this pattern is surprisingly simple. Wealth follows value creation, not competition. Competition assumes scarcity. Creation assumes possibility. And the mindset behind those two approaches leads people down very different paths. Imagine two entrepreneurs opening restaurants in the same neighborhood. The first spends all of his energy studying competitors. He constantly worries about pricing. He copies whatever menu items appear popular elsewhere. His entire strategy revolves around keeping up with everyone around him. The second entrepreneur approaches the situation differently. Instead of focusing on competitors, she focuses on experience. She experiments with new recipes. She designs a warm atmosphere. She builds a place people genuinely enjoy visiting. Over time, something interesting happens. The first restaurant survives by reacting. The second grows by creating. One fights for a share of existing demand. The other generates new demand. And this difference reflects exactly what Wattles meant when he spoke about creative thinking. Creative thinking does not mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to see opportunity as limited. It means asking a different question instead of asking, how can I beat someone else? Creative thinking asks, what new value can I bring into the world? That shift may sound subtle, but its consequences are enormous. Because once someone begins thinking creatively, the field of opportunity expands dramatically. New products appear. The new services appear. Entirely new industries emerge. History offers countless examples. When Elon Musk helped build companies focused on electric vehicles and private space travel, he was not simply competing in established industries. He was attempting to reshape them. Electric vehicles existed long before Tesla. But Tesla approached the problem differently. Instead of treating electric cars as small niche vehicles, the company imagined them as high-performance machines capable of competing with traditional luxury cars. That shift changed public perception, and over time, the entire automobile industry began accelerating toward electric technology. Once again, creation expanded opportunity, and once again, enormous wealth followed the expansion. This principle leads to an important realization. The world is far less limited than it appears. Scarcity is often a matter of perspective. Opportunities multiply when new value enters the system. The digital age provides perhaps the clearest example of this phenomenon. Before the internet, global communication was expensive and slow. Launching a business often required significant capital. Reaching customers across the world was difficult. Then the internet arrived. Suddenly, individuals could build companies from small apartments. Writers could reach millions of readers online. Software developers could create products used globally. The internet did not merely redistribute existing wealth. It created entirely new forms of economic activity. And this is the deeper insight behind Wattles' philosophy. Creation expands possibility. Competition merely redistributes it. That is why the greatest wealth often appears in moments of innovation. Inventions create new markets. Ideas generate new industries. Solutions to unsolved problems generate enormous value. Understanding this principle changes how opportunity appears. Instead of chasing crowded paths, attention shifts toward creation, toward solving problems, toward building systems that improve the lives of others. Because at its core, wealth is simply the reward for value created in the world. And when value expands, opportunity expands with it. This does not mean competition disappears entirely, but it stops being the primary focus. The focus becomes contribution, innovation, creation. That mindset opens doors that competition alone rarely reveals. And once someone begins thinking in that direction, a remarkable transformation begins to take place. Instead of asking how to fight for success, they begin asking how to build it. And that question leads directly to the next principle Wattles believed was essential for wealth: the power of vision. Because creation does not begin with action, it begins with a clear picture of the future. Chapter 4. The power of a definite vision. Every meaningful creation in the world begins with something invisible, a picture in the mind. Before a building rises into the skyline, someone sees it clearly in imagination. Before a company grows into a global enterprise, someone envisions what it could become. Before a new invention reshapes an industry, someone first believes it is possible. This mental picture, this clear internal vision, is one of the most powerful forces behind human progress, and according to Wallace D. Wattles, it is also one of the most powerful forces behind wealth. In The Science of Being Rich, Wattles repeatedly emphasized something he called a definite vision of what you want. Not a vague hope, not a general wish for more money, but a clear mental image of the life you intend to create. Why does this matter so much? Because the human mind naturally moves toward what it consistently imagines. Without a clear direction, energy becomes scattered. Decisions drift, opportunities pass unnoticed. But when the mind holds a precise picture of a future outcome, attention begins organizing itself around that destination. Actions start aligning. Choices become easier. Progress accelerates. History offers countless examples of this phenomenon. Consider the story of Walt Disney. Before Disneyland existed, the idea sounded unrealistic to many people. An entire park dedicated to imagination. A place where stories could become physical environments. A world where visitors could step inside the worlds of animated films. Many investors initially doubted the concept, but Disney carried a very specific vision in his mind. So he did not merely imagine an amusement park. He imagined an experience, a place where storytelling, architecture, music, and design would blend together. When Disneyland finally opened in 1955, it changed the entertainment industry. Theme parks around the world would later follow the model he pioneered. And once again, wealth followed creation driven by vision. Stories like this reveal an important pattern. Clear vision focuses human effort. Without vision, activity often becomes reaction. People respond to circumstances rather than shaping them. But when vision is strong, circumstances become material for creation. This principle applies far beyond famous entrepreneurs. It operates quietly in everyday life. Consider two individuals beginning their careers. The first person moves from job to job without a clear picture of the future. Each decision is made in response to immediate needs: income, security, convenience. The second person begins with a clear vision of the life they want to build, not just financially, but creatively and personally. That vision begins influencing decisions early. Skills are chosen intentionally. Relationships are built strategically. Projects align with a larger direction. Years later, the difference between these two paths often becomes dramatic. Not because one person worked harder, but because one person moved with a destination in mind. This idea sits at the heart of Wattles' philosophy. Creation begins with definite thought, and definite thought requires a definite image. The clearer the vision becomes, the easier it is for action to follow. In fact, many successful entrepreneurs and innovators describe using visualization long before their ideas become reality. Athletes do this as well. Olympic competitors often visualize their performance repeatedly before stepping onto the field. They mentally rehearse success. They see the result before the moment arrives. This mental rehearsal influences behavior in subtle ways. Confidence increases, focus sharpens, performance improves. The same mechanism applies to wealth creation. When someone holds a clear picture of the life they intend to build, decisions begin aligning with that image. This does not mean the path becomes smooth or predictable. Challenges still appear. Unexpected obstacles still arise. But vision acts as a compass. When direction is clear, detours become temporary rather than permanent. But one of the most famous examples of vision shaping reality can be seen in the story of Elon Musk. When Musk began speaking publicly about reusable rockets and private space travel, many experts dismissed the idea as unrealistic. Space exploration had always been dominated by governments. The technical and financial barriers seemed enormous, but Musk held a vision that extended decades into the future. He imagined a world where space travel would become dramatically cheaper, a world where humanity might eventually become a multi-planetary species. That vision guided the development of SpaceX. Years of failures followed: rocket explosions, technical setbacks, financial pressure. But the vision remained. Eventually, SpaceX succeeded in landing reusable rockets, a breakthrough that dramatically changed the economics of space flight. And once again, creation driven by vision generated enormous value. Stories like this illustrate a simple but powerful truth. Vision organizes effort. When the destination is clear, energy becomes focused, ideas connect, resources gather, momentum builds. Without vision, even hard work can drift endlessly. With vision, effort begins moving in a meaningful direction. This is why Wattles insisted that those who wish to become wealthy must develop a clear mental picture of the life they intend to build. Not just income, but lifestyle, contribution, impact. Because wealth, in the deepest sense, is not merely about accumulation, it is about creation. And creation begins with imagination. The mind sees it first. Action builds it later. And eventually, reality begins reflecting the picture that once existed only inside the imagination. In the next chapter, we will explore another principle that Wattles believed played a surprisingly powerful role in wealth creation. A principle many people underestimate: the role of gratitude. Because according to Wattles, the emotional state you carry toward life can quietly influence the opportunities that appear around you. Chapter 5. Gratitude. The quiet force that attracts opportunity. Gratitude is rarely discussed when people talk about wealth. Financial conversations usually focus on strategy, investment, business models, market timing. Yet in the science of being rich, Wallace D. Wattles insisted that gratitude plays a surprisingly powerful role in the process of becoming wealthy. At first glance, that idea may sound unusual. What does gratitude have to do with money? But the more closely you examine human behavior, the more this connection begins to make sense. Gratitude changes how the mind sees the world, and the way the mind sees the world influences every decision that follows. A mind focused on scarcity notices problems. A mind focused on gratitude notices possibilities. This difference may appear subtle, but over time it produces dramatically different results. Consider the experience of building any project or business. Setbacks are inevitable. Markets shift, ideas fail, plans collapse. In those moments, the emotional state a person carries becomes critical. Frustration narrows perception. Fear discourages action. But gratitude does something different. It keeps attention focused on what is still working. It reminds the mind that progress is still possible, and that emotional shift often leads to better decisions. This is one of the deeper insights behind Wattles' philosophy. Gratitude aligns the mind with creation rather than limitation. When someone becomes deeply aware of opportunities already present in their life, their thinking begins expanding instead of contracting. They begin noticing resources they previously overlooked. The connections become clearer. Ideas appear where obstacles once dominated attention. History provides many examples of this mindset. Consider the early life of Oprah Winfrey. Winfrey grew up in difficult circumstances. Her childhood included poverty, instability, and numerous personal challenges. Yet throughout interviews and speeches, she often speaks about the role gratitude played in her development. Rather than allowing early hardship to define her outlook, she focused on learning, growth, and opportunity wherever it appeared. That perspective shaped the way she approached her career. It influenced the authenticity she brought to broadcasting, and over time it helped build one of the most influential media careers in modern history. Now, gratitude alone does not create wealth, but gratitude influences perception. And perception influences action. In many ways, gratitude acts like a lens through which the world is interpreted. When someone constantly feels that life is unfair or limited, the mind tends to close itself. Risk appears threatening. Opportunities appear suspicious. Energy becomes defensive. But when gratitude becomes a habit, the opposite tends to occur. Curiosity grows. Confidence strengthens. Possibilities become easier to imagine. And once possibility enters the mind, creation becomes easier. This idea also connects closely to the principle of vision discussed earlier. Vision provides direction. Gratitude provides emotional stability along the journey. Together, they create a powerful combination. Vision shows where you are going. Gratitude reminds you that progress is already underway. And this combination prevents one of the most common traps in financial life: constant dissatisfaction. Many people spend their entire lives chasing more income, more possessions, more status. Yet the feeling of enough never arrives. The mind constantly shifts its expectations forward. Achievement becomes temporary. Satisfaction becomes elusive. But gratitude interrupts that cycle. It brings attention back to the present moment. It acknowledges the progress already made. And in doing so, it creates a psychological environment where creativity can thrive. Interestingly, many modern studies in psychology support this idea. Researchers have found that gratitude practices often increase optimism, resilience, and long-term motivation. These qualities play a significant role in entrepreneurial success and long-term financial growth. In other words, gratitude does not replace effort. It strengthens the mindset that makes sustained effort possible. Wattles believed gratitude also served another important function. It kept individuals connected to the creative forces that generate opportunity. Whether one interprets this idea spiritually or psychologically, the underlying principle remains powerful. A grateful mind remains open, and openness invites possibility. When someone appreciates the resources already available, skills, relationships, knowledge, those resources begin combining in new ways. Opportunities emerge, ideas connect, momentum grows. This is why many successful individuals quietly maintain practices that cultivate gratitude. Daily reflection, journaling, moments of appreciation for progress already achieved. These practices may appear simple, but they help maintain the mental state necessary for long-term creation. And creation, as we have already seen, is the foundation of wealth. Gratitude reminds the mind that the process is already unfolding, that the journey itself contains value, that progress is rarely immediate, but it is always possible. In this way, gratitude becomes a stabilizing force. It protects vision during difficult moments. It maintains confidence when results are slow to appear, and it keeps the mind aligned with possibility rather than fear. But gratitude alone is not enough. Vision must eventually translate into action. In the next chapter, we will explore another crucial idea from Wattles, an idea that transforms imagination into real-world progress, the principle of acting in a certain way. Because wealth does not emerge from thought alone. Thought must eventually move into action. Chapter 6. Acting in a certain way. Vision alone does not create wealth. Neither does imagination by itself. An idea can remain inside the mind for years without ever changing the world. What transforms thought into reality is action. But according to Wallace D. Wattles, the key is not simply action. It is action taken in a certain way. This distinction is subtle, but it is crucial. Many people stay busy every day. Schedules fill with meetings, tasks, and responsibilities. Hours of effort accumulate week after week. Yet despite all that activity, progress sometimes remains frustratingly slow. The problem is rarely effort. The problem is direction. Activity without direction creates exhaustion. Action with clear intention creates momentum. This is what Wattles meant when he wrote about acting in a certain way. And he believed that once a clear vision exists, every action should begin aligning with that vision. Even small steps matter, because progress rarely appears through sudden breakthroughs. More often, it grows through consistent movement in a clear direction. History repeatedly illustrates this principle. Consider the early years of Ray Kroc. When Kroc first encountered the McDonald brothers' small restaurant in California, he saw something unusual. The restaurant operated with extraordinary efficiency. Food preparation was streamlined. Service was fast. Customers received consistent quality. The system worked. Kroc realized that the true opportunity was not simply selling hamburgers. The opportunity was replicating the system. With persistence and relentless focus, he began expanding the concept through franchising. But one restaurant became 2, 2 became 10, 10 became hundreds, and eventually thousands of locations appeared across the world. The success of McDonald's did not happen overnight. It was the result of steady action guided by a clear vision. Every step reinforced the system, every decision strengthened the structure. And over time, small actions accumulated into one of the most recognizable brands in the world. This pattern appears in many successful ventures. Progress is rarely dramatic in the beginning. The early stages often look ordinary, a product being improved, a skill being developed, a network slowly growing, but consistent action compounds. Just as money compounds in an investment account, effort compounds when it moves in a consistent direction. This is why Wattles emphasized daily action, and he believed that every day should contain some movement toward the desired vision. Not frantic activity, not desperate hustle, but deliberate progress. Even a small action taken each day gradually transforms possibility into reality. Consider how this principle appears in creative work. Writers rarely produce an entire book in a single burst of inspiration. Instead, the work develops page by page. Artists build masterpieces, brushstroke by brushstroke. Software developers write complex programs line by line. Creation unfolds through accumulated effort. The same process applies to wealth. Financial growth rarely arrives through one sudden event. It grows through repeated decisions that gradually build value. New skills learned, ideas tested, systems developed, relationships strengthened, and each action becomes a brick in a much larger structure. And over time, that structure begins producing opportunities that were invisible in the beginning. Another important element of acting in a certain way is confidence. Not blind confidence, but confidence rooted in direction. When someone knows where they are going, hesitation decreases. Decisions become faster. Energy becomes focused. Confidence allows action to continue even when results are temporarily unclear. This mindset played a crucial role in the development of companies like those created by Jeff Bezos. In the early days of Amazon, the company operated with extremely thin margins. Many analysts questioned whether an online bookstore could ever become profitable. But Bezos continued investing in infrastructure, logistics, and long-term expansion. So when he believed the system being built would eventually reshape global commerce, and over time, that vision proved correct. What looked risky in the short term became transformative in the long term. This is another aspect of acting in a certain way. The ability to think beyond immediate outcomes, to understand that meaningful creation often requires patience. Short-term setbacks do not necessarily signal failure. They are often part of the development process. Action guided by vision allows persistence through those moments. And persistence, sustained long enough, becomes one of the most powerful forces behind success. But there is another dimension to acting in a certain way. It involves how actions affect others. Wattles emphasized that wealth should grow through value creation. Every action should contribute something meaningful. A product that improves lives, a service that solves problems, a system that increases efficiency. When value expands, wealth naturally follows. This principle shifts attention away from exploitation and toward contribution. Instead of asking how to take advantage of a situation, the focus becomes how to improve it. This mindset often creates stronger relationships, better reputations, and greater long-term opportunity. In this way, acting in a certain way becomes both practical and ethical. It aligns effort with creation. It aligns ambition with contribution. And over time, it transforms vision into tangible results. Thought begins the process. Vision guides the direction. Gratitude maintains the mindset, but action is the bridge that connects imagination to reality. Without action, ideas remain possibilities. With action, possibilities begin turning into structure, and structure eventually becomes wealth. In the next chapter, we will explore one of the most common reasons financial success never arrives for many people. A hidden barrier that quietly stops progress long before results appear. The barrier of doubt and hesitation. Chapter 7. The hidden barrier that stops wealth. The path toward wealth rarely collapses because of effort. It collapses because of doubt. Doubt is subtle. It rarely appears as a dramatic decision to give up. Instead, it appears quietly, a hesitation before taking action. A voice suggesting an idea may be unrealistic. A moment where opportunity is dismissed before it is fully explored. Over time, these small moments accumulate, and gradually, progress slows. Vision weakens, momentum disappears. This invisible barrier has stopped more ambitions than failure ever has. Failure, after all, is often temporary. Many successful entrepreneurs have failed repeatedly before achieving success. But doubt is different. Doubt stops action before experience can even begin. This is why Wallace D. Wattles warned about the dangers of hesitation. He believed that once a clear vision exists, doubt becomes one of the greatest obstacles to progress. Because doubt disrupts consistency, and consistency is the foundation of creation. History provides powerful examples of individuals who continued moving forward despite overwhelming skepticism. Consider the early years of Walt Disney. Before Disneyland existed, the concept sounded strange to many investors. An amusement park built around storytelling, a place where visitors could walk through worlds inspired by animated films. Financing the project proved extremely difficult. Banks rejected the idea repeatedly. Critics doubted the concept. Yet Disney continued pursuing the vision. He believed that families wanted more than simple rides. He believed they wanted immersive experiences. Eventually, after years of persistence, Disneyland opened in 1955. It transformed the entertainment industry. Theme parks around the world would later follow the model Disney created. And once again, a vision that initially faced skepticism became a massive economic success. Stories like this illustrate something important. Doubt often appears strongest just before breakthrough. When an idea begins moving toward reality, resistance tends to increase. Criticism becomes louder. Risks become more visible. Uncertainty grows. At that moment, many people retreat. Not because their vision was wrong, but because doubt convinces them the path is impossible. Yet the individuals who eventually succeed tend to respond differently. They treat doubt as part of the process, rather than a signal to stop. And they understand that every significant creation initially appears unrealistic. Consider another example from the world of technology. When Elon Musk began developing reusable rockets through SpaceX, the company experienced several early launch failures. Rockets exploded, millions of dollars were lost. Experts questioned whether the company could survive. At one point, SpaceX had funding for only one more launch attempt. If that rocket failed, the company would collapse. But the team continued working. The next launch succeeded. Soon after, SpaceX began landing reusable rockets, a technological breakthrough that reshaped the economics of space travel. Again, the difference was not simply effort. It was persistence through doubt. And understanding this principle helps explain why many people never move beyond the early stages of their ambitions. Doubt encourages hesitation. Hesitation interrupts action. Interrupted action prevents momentum. And without momentum, even strong ideas can fade. Wattles believed that maintaining faith in one's vision was essential for overcoming this cycle. Not blind faith, but confidence rooted in clarity. When someone truly understands what they are building and why it matters, doubt loses some of its power. The mind becomes anchored to purpose rather than uncertainty. Another reason doubt becomes dangerous is that it often disguises itself as logic. It sounds reasonable. Maybe this idea isn't practical. Maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe someone else will do it better. These thoughts appear rational, but they often conceal fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of uncertainty. Yet nearly every significant achievement requires stepping into uncertainty. No innovation comes with guaranteed outcomes. No entrepreneurial venture begins with perfect information. Progress requires movement before certainty exists. This is why persistence becomes so powerful. Each action builds experience. Each attempt reveals new information. Gradually, uncertainty begins turning into knowledge, and knowledge strengthens confidence. Over time, the very thing that once created doubt becomes the foundation of mastery. The early stages of any meaningful journey are often uncomfortable. Results may appear slowly. Mistakes may happen frequently. But progress compounds. Each step makes the next step easier. Each lesson improves the next attempt. Eventually, momentum begins building, and once momentum appears, opportunities begin multiplying. What once seemed impossible starts becoming normal. This transformation does not happen overnight, but it does happen for those who remain consistent long enough. Vision starts the journey. Action builds momentum. Persistence carries progress through moments of doubt. Together, these forces create the foundation for wealth. But there is still one final idea Wattles believed was essential, an idea that changes how we define success itself. Because wealth, in the deepest sense, is not simply about accumulating money. It is about becoming a certain kind of person. And in the final chapter, we will explore that transformation. The shift from chasing wealth to becoming the person wealth naturally moves toward. Chapter 8. Becoming the person. Wealth flows. Toward wealth is often described as something people chase, a destination somewhere in the distance, an achievement waiting at the end of a long road of effort and sacrifice. But the deeper message inside the philosophy of Wallace D. Wattles suggests something different. Wealth may not be something you chase, it may be something you grow into. That idea changes how success is understood. Instead of asking how to hunt for money, the question becomes something far more interesting. Who must you become in order for wealth to appear naturally in your life? Throughout the chapters, we have explored several principles that shape this transformation. Creation instead of competition, vision instead of drifting, gratitude instead of scarcity, action instead of hesitation, persistence instead of doubt. Now, each of these principles gradually reshapes the way a person interacts with opportunity. And over time, those changes alter the trajectory of a life. Because wealth, in its deepest sense, is rarely the result of a single moment. It is the result of alignment. Alignment between thought, action, and value creation. When those elements begin working together, progress accelerates. Ideas become clearer. Decisions become more confident. Opportunities become easier to recognize. Consider the story of Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie arrived in the United States as a poor immigrant. His early jobs were modest. He worked as a telegraph messenger and later as a railroad employee. But Carnegie developed an unusual habit. He studied opportunity constantly. He observed industries carefully. He learned how systems of production worked. Instead of remaining trapped in the limits of his current job, he began thinking about the larger structure of the economy. Eventually, he entered the steel industry. At the time, steel production was becoming essential for railroads, bridges, and construction. Carnegie recognized the scale of that opportunity early. He invested aggressively in steel manufacturing and developed highly efficient production systems. Over time, Carnegie Steel became one of the most powerful industrial companies in the world. His fortune eventually made him one of the richest individuals of his era. Yet Carnegie often emphasized something interesting about success. He believed wealth followed value creation. The individuals who contributed the most useful systems, ideas, and solutions naturally attracted the greatest economic rewards. In other words, as wealth flowed toward contribution. This insight reflects the deeper philosophy behind Wattles's ideas. Wealth is not simply the result of accumulation. It is the result of expansion. Expansion of value. Expansion of opportunity. Expansion of systems that improve the lives of others. When someone consistently contributes meaningful value to the world, wealth tends to follow that contribution. Sometimes slowly, sometimes unexpectedly. But over time, the pattern appears again and again. This is why the process of becoming wealthy is often inseparable from the process of personal growth. New levels of wealth require new levels of thinking, new levels of discipline, new levels of responsibility. A person who develops those qualities becomes capable of creating larger impact, and larger impact often generates larger rewards. In that sense, and wealth is less about money and more about capability. The ability to solve meaningful problems, the ability to build systems that help others, the ability to imagine possibilities others overlook. This transformation can happen gradually. It may begin with small projects, learning a new skill, improving a product, helping a client solve a problem. Each act of creation strengthens the mindset that supports growth. Confidence expands, experience deepens, vision becomes clearer. Over time, a remarkable shift begins to occur. Instead of chasing opportunities, opportunities begin appearing naturally. Instead of searching desperately for income, systems begin generating it. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you begin shaping them. This is the quiet transformation Wattles was describing. The moment when wealth stops feeling like a distant goal and begins functioning as a natural consequence of creation. It is not magic. It is not luck. It is alignment. When thought focuses on creation, when action follows vision, when persistence carries effort through uncertainty, a powerful momentum begins building. And momentum is one of the most valuable forces in any financial journey. Once progress begins compounding, results accelerate. Small improvements become large advantages. Systems begin producing value long after the initial work is complete. In many ways, this is how wealth truly grows. Not through sudden miracles, but through steady creation sustained over time. Understanding this process also changes how success is measured. Money becomes a byproduct rather than the sole objective. The real focus becomes building something meaningful. A business, a system, a solution, a contribution that improves the world in some way. When that focus becomes genuine, wealth often follows naturally, because value has been created. And value, once introduced into the world, tends to generate opportunity. That is the final lesson behind the philosophy of the science of being rich. Wealth does not belong exclusively to the lucky. It belongs to those who learn how to create, to those who imagine possibilities others overlook, to those who act consistently in alignment with vision and purpose. And once someone begins living according to those principles, a quiet transformation begins. They stop chasing wealth, and gradually, wealth begins moving toward them. Another important realization begins to emerge once someone understands this principle. Wealth is not only external, it is also internal. Long before financial results appear, something else begins changing first. Perspective changes. The way problems are approached changes. Instead of seeing obstacles as signals to stop, they become puzzles waiting to be solved. This shift in mindset often marks the real beginning of financial transformation. Because the external world tends to mirror internal patterns of thinking. When someone constantly expects limitation, they unconsciously build decisions around caution and restriction. But when someone expects possibility, their behavior gradually changes. They experiment more, they explore new ideas, and they become comfortable operating in uncertain territory. And that willingness to move forward, even without perfect certainty, often opens doors that hesitation would have kept closed. This is why many individuals who build great fortunes eventually describe success in surprisingly similar ways. They rarely say wealth appeared suddenly. Instead, they describe a gradual shift in how they saw the world. Opportunities that once seemed invisible began appearing everywhere. Problems that once felt overwhelming became solvable challenges. And the journey that originally began with the desire for financial freedom gradually evolved into something deeper. A desire to create, to build, to contribute something meaningful. Ironically, it is often at that stage, when creation becomes more important than money itself, that wealth begins growing most rapidly, because genuine value is now being produced. And value, once released into the world, has a powerful tendency to multiply. This is why the philosophy behind the science of being rich continues resonating more than a century after it was written. It reminds us that wealth is not simply a number in a bank account. It is the natural result of becoming a person capable of creating value consistently. And when that transformation occurs, the pursuit of wealth begins to look very different. It no longer feels like a chase. It becomes a process of growth. As we reach the end of this journey through the science of being rich, something important becomes clear. This book was never really just about money. Yes, wealth is the topic on the surface. But beneath that surface lies a much deeper message about how human beings interact with opportunity, creativity, and possibility. More than a century ago, Wallace D. Wattles attempted to describe a pattern he believed shaped financial success. A pattern based not on luck or privilege, but on alignment between thought, action, and creation. Now, whether someone interprets Wattles' philosophy as spiritual law, psychological insight, or simply motivational guidance is entirely up to them. Personally, I believe the real power of this book lies in something simpler. It changes how we think about wealth. Instead of treating money as something mysterious or unfair, it reframes wealth as a consequence of creation. When people consistently create value, systems, and solutions that improve the world around them, economic reward often follows. Sometimes slowly, sometimes unpredictably. But the pattern appears again and again throughout history. Look at the individuals who reshaped industries. They did not simply chase money. They built something, a product, a system, a new way of solving problems. And over time, wealth followed the value they created. This perspective also removes one of the most damaging myths about success: the idea that opportunity is limited. The world expands through creation. New technologies appear, new industries emerge. New solutions transform the way people live and work. And each new idea expands the field of possibility. And with every expansion, new forms of wealth become possible. But there is another lesson hidden inside this philosophy. A lesson that is perhaps even more important. Wealth is not simply something you acquire. It is something you grow into. The process of becoming wealthy often requires becoming a different version of yourself. Someone who thinks more creatively. Someone who acts more deliberately. Someone who remains persistent even when results take time to appear. In other words, the journey toward wealth is also a journey of personal development. New levels of wealth require new levels of thinking, new levels of responsibility, new levels of discipline, and perhaps most importantly, a willingness to imagine possibilities others cannot yet see. And that is the quiet transformation at the heart of this entire philosophy. The moment when someone stops asking, "How can I chase money?" and begins asking, "What can I create that genuinely improves the world?" Because once that shift happens, everything begins changing. Ideas become more interesting, work becomes more meaningful, and wealth often begins appearing as a natural consequence of contribution. Personally, I find that idea both empowering and reassuring. It suggests that financial success is not reserved for a small group of fortunate individuals. It suggests that wealth is accessible to anyone willing to think creatively, act consistently, and contribute meaningful value over time. Of course, the path will never be perfectly smooth. Every creator encounters obstacles. Every entrepreneur experiences uncertainty. And every ambitious idea faces moments of doubt. But progress rarely belongs to those who avoid difficulty. It belongs to those who continue building despite it. And when creation becomes a habit, when imagination consistently turns into action, something remarkable begins to happen. Momentum builds. Opportunities multiply, and the life that once existed only as a vision slowly begins taking shape in reality. That, perhaps, is the most powerful message behind the science of being rich. Wealth is not merely something to pursue. It is something that grows naturally when vision, creativity, and consistent action begin working together. And once someone understands that process, the question is no longer whether opportunity exists. The real question becomes something far more exciting. What will you choose to create next?